see here. Cadmium. Cadmium will be found is associated with smoking. So if you were a smoker at one time in your life, or even if it was socially, or if you grew up in a home with smoking, or if you worked in an environment not too long ago, we used to have smoking sections in restaurants, which literally was not a section, it was just an area, right? There was no walled off or anything, so we're all being exposed to that. So we all have been somewhat exposed. For anyone who's basically been around since say the 90s and before, because right around the mid 90s to late 90s when restaurants started moving and bars and they started moving smoking outside. But still, if you have friends, if you've been around smoking, you still can have this exposure where smoking has been shown to have cadmium in the cigarettes, and so you can get this exposure from smoking secondhand or a current smoker as well. And cadmium is a common thing that we see also. Now mercury, we're going to see inorganic and organic. So your organic is going to be things like fish, the oceans, those sort of like environmental type things. You're going to see the organic type mercury, and that's important because we eliminate organic mercury and inorganic mercury differently. We have it through urine, we have it through hair, so we eliminate it differently. So it's important we know the distinction between is it organic or inorganic and the impacts. Now the inorganic is going to be things like amalgams. They use it also in some of the vaccines as well that we get exposed to. If you're having childhood vaccines or if you're getting like flu shots, things like that, it's going to have a component to having some of that mercury. But the most common one is amalgams, right? Fillings. So not too long ago, dentists used to use mercury fillings, and be some that are still doing it to this day. And that can be very harmful because as it starts to wear down and it starts to be exposed to your body, it can start leaching from the teeth and getting right into your body, impacting the brain and the rest of the body. It's a very another common neurotoxin that can create many, many issues inside the body. And we see this quite often with a lot of our individuals. So I will warn you though, if you do have mercury fillings, get them evaluated. Because if you have this leaching right now, it can definitely increase risk of things like dementia and Alzheimer's. So that's not something you want to mess around with. And if you're going to get them evaluated, do not go to a traditional dentist. You have to go to a biological dentist, someone who is trained, who can remove the mercury accurately. Because once they start drilling on the teeth and the mercury becomes in a gas form, it just can expose to your body very rapidly. It can cause super, super detrimental problems to your health. So you have to make sure someone is doing it appropriately. And if you need help with finding someone, reach out. We can help you with that. Arsenic is another one that we see as well. And this is commonly found in rice. Now, people may say, that's rice. Why don't we hear more about this? Well, just today, I was listening to the news and they were having a recall on a specific baby food cereal that is a rice component because of too much or too high levels of arsenic they found in that. So oftentimes with a lot of the practice members that we work with here, they are gluten-free and they're doing things that are gluten-free, which rice is a common thing that's a gluten-free product. And rice can be in a lot of binders, right? So they make it in breads, pastas, those sort of things. So you may be eating gluten-free, but you're getting tons of rice and potential for arsenic exposure. It is really, really common. And so a lot of people don't realize that rice has this component. And so actually eating rice not only can be harmful to the gut, inflammation, but you can increase your risk of exposure to heavy metal toxicity like arsenic. So that's the heavy metals and potential exposures and where you can be getting some of these things. Now, obviously, this last one, environmental, is probably one of the easiest to talk about because we're all aware about the toxins that we specifically are exposed to on a regular basis. Right? We know our air is full of pollution. Right? We hear about things like global warming and all those types of things, the icebergs melting, those whatever your belief system is. But we have a lot of pollution that's we're being exposed to, which is why we're starting to see this green movement. Windmills, solar, electric cars to try to create, reduce our carbon load on our environments to save our environment, to save our atmosphere. But these exposures not only come from pollution, but they can come from, living down in Southern California. We get things that come over from Mexico, which is very limited, EPA, if you will, up there, and they just comes right over the border. There's no stopping that coming over here. And we constantly see on a regular basis how the ocean has been testing as it gets closer to Mexico for sewage and shutting down. So we have all these exposures that we're being exposed to from an environmental aspect, which starts to bog down our body and our ability to do its job in creating these toxic environments. Our foods, we have so much exposures to pesticides and certain herbicides and things that are going on that are being put into our food supply. There's other things as well. There's certain things they add to foods that are preservatives that can be very toxic. Food spices and things like that to enhance the way our food tastes, to make our brain think we want more, which is why we start to have problems with obesity and those sort of things. So we have a big problem with our food industry and the type of quality of food that we're getting. On top of that, the pesticides, herbicides, and those sort of things. You may not even realize this as well, is that even with organic, there's a certain level of pesticides and herbicides that can be allowed to still be considered organic, which is insanity. So really the only true way to go organic is to have your own garden, raise your own foods, but it can be difficult for most of us to do. Chemicals. Obviously, these chemicals, what I'm referring to, it's inclusive of the air chemicals we're being exposed to, the food chemicals that we're being exposed to. But what about the chemicals from pharmaceuticals? What about the chemicals from any kind of injections that we're getting, like, steroid shots or like, inoculations, those sort of things? These are chemicals that we're being exposed to on a regular basis, even over-the-counter type things. Taking Advil or Tylenol on a regular basis. These are chemicals that start to bog down your body's ability to function optimally. And so as you start to create more and more issues with these toxicities, next thing you know, the body starts to break down. And as it starts to break down, we start to have symptoms. So toxicities is a huge, huge component. And as I mentioned before, one of the major things that we see in our practice is the inability for the person to detoxify. Huge, huge problem. So think about this. Let's say you get exposed to mold. You get a mold exposure. Now your body is dealing with that. Now you're eating poor quality food because you're a student, right, in college, and so you're eating fast food. You're eating, certain foods like top ramen, or eating rice that has all these exposures. Now you're getting exposed to more heavy metal toxicity, as well as these chemicals that are in these foods as well. And you start to continue doing this throughout your life because you create this new lifestyle. Now, 15, 20 years down the road, you start not feeling so good. You start to develop high blood pressure, start to develop elevated cholesterol. Maybe you're starting to have some blood sugar issues that are developing, or a thyroid problem. So next thing you know, now you're taking more medication, so now you're getting more chemical exposures. And this keeps on going over and over, and eventually your liver's like, hold up, I'm trying to take care of all this stuff, but I can't keep up with the demand. So it starts to reduce its ability to do its job. Now the toxic buildup is even happening even further. As it continues to build and build and build, it starts to create a backlog, and you start feeling sicker and sicker. So you can kind of start to see how this overall health and our bodies function. See, if we don't know how to listen to our bodies, or we don't know how to actually understand what's going on, it's going to be very difficult. So our entire focus is, how can we address a symptom? How can I feel better? How can I lower my blood sugars, lower my blood pressure, cholesterol, or what have you, rather than focusing on what's caused it? And these toxicities can be a major component. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm probably going to be breaking this toxicity scenario up into a 4-part series. So this is part 2, part 1 on the next part 3, which we'll be doing next week. I'll review everything we talked about real briefly and go into the next steps of how we evaluate for these toxins, and then eventually how do we address them in the 4th part. So hopefully today wasn't too long of a video for you. We're able to hang with me and I didn't lose you. Sometimes some of the things I go over just goes right over the head. But if this was of value for you, let me know in the comments below that it was valuable. Share it to your social networks. I think that'll be important. Somebody is dealing with these problems right now and may not even be thinking or on their radar that toxicity can be a problem. They need to know this information. So I appreciate if you share this information. If there was any questions, some confusion, please post it in the comments below. I'll try to address those questions directly. Or if it will be helpful, I can address them and the next video that I do as part of this 4-part series. Okay, hope you guys enjoyed the video today. I really appreciate it if you would like our Facebook page, because it helps us get that information out there, and also will help you when I do my next live video to get the alerts that I'm doing this. And then also, if you want to learn more about what I do in the practice, you can always go to our YouTube page, which will have all of our patient testimonials on there. Lots of videos that I've done and educational things that what we do in the practice and how we helped so many people recover from chronic degenerative diseases and live the quality of life that they deserve. Our YouTube page is my full name, Jason, Jason, Shumard, S-H-U, M as in Mary, A-R-D, as in dog, then the letter D, the letter C, so Jason Shumard, DC. You can go to that page, like the page, so you can get the alerts when new information goes up on that page as well. So hope you guys had I hope you have a great rest of your day and week, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Take care.